Tarps Off Sports.
This is Sergio with Tarps Off Sports. I am joined by UFC featherweight Darrick Minner. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. So I'm up in Canada, and right now we're still kind of in lockdown. Things are open one day and closed the next. What's it been like for you there? I mean, training must have been very difficult throughout this whole pandemic.
I didn't change a single aspect of what I've done for the last since this stuff started. I had a kid. My daughter was born April 21st of last year, so like right in the midst of it. So right then I was a little careful, but then when I realized it was a damn joke and a political stunt for the world, you know, like you just come to realize, like, man, how can you be scared of a virus that's 0.03% chance of freaking killing you? It's just ridiculous.
What's it like raising a daughter during all this? I mean, the world's crazy right now. Is it how is being a father during a pandemic?
Man, I think our life's pretty much normal, man. I got a 5-year-old stepdaughter and a 1-year-old daughter, and man, we're lucky to be in the Midwest and be in Nebraska, and stuff's really calmed down. People aren't crazy as they were. I'm not getting evil looks for not wearing a mask anymore. Like, that stuff's gone. The mask stuff's gone and all that. So hopefully it stays that way so we can get back to normal life. You know, I'm kind of scared the way the direction of the school systems and stuff like that are going to go with the mask stuff, and, you know, whatever. You know, if we have to send them to a private school or whatever so that they don't have to wear masks, like, that's what it'll be. Because if that ever came about while they're in school, like, I'm not going to mask my child for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy how like the contrast is all over the world and all over the country, even in the United States. As for professionally, I mean, the pandemic almost kind of was good for you. I mean, you went 2-0 since the beginning of the pandemic. Obviously, that huge win over TJ Laramie, a fellow Canadian. How does it feel to rack off those 2 wins? Your first 2 wins in the UFC.
Man, it's great. I've always known that this day was going to come where I'm on a winning streak in the UFC. I just didn't know when, and it took me a long time to get here. I took the longest route probably possible to get to the UFC. But, you know, in a way it worked. It prepared me for what the UFC has to offer. You know, like, I fought the who's who on the local circuit, LFA, RFA, and you know, Dynasty Combat Sports, and wherever I was fighting, man, like, I fought the who's who. So, like, when I get here, it's already, like, the majority of the dudes that I've fought in the last 4 or 5 years are in the UFC. So, yeah, man, it's awesome, you know, and I think it's starting to come into fruition how I thought the 21-year-old me that chased this journey thought it was going to be. I just didn't realize it's going to be so long.
Yeah, it was quite the journey. Almost 30 something fights to get here. I mean, even if you look at your losses, I mean, Herbert Burns, Kevin Croom, Jordan Griffin, Pico Famous, those guys all competed in the UFC. I mean, your losses before the UFC were all UFC level guys. What was it like having them reach the UFC, knowing that you could have been that guy had you got that win?
Well, I mean, a couple of those guys I got to the UFC before they did, but you know, it's the thing with that is, like, you go watch a lot of those fights, man. Like, before I met James Krause, the way I fought, you know, was do or die, live by the sword or die by the sword. And I mean, of course, I'm always looking for the finish and stuff, but I kind of, like, screwed myself out of a lot of fights because of that, you know. And you know, the loss to Jordan Griffin, for instance, like, I dominated him for two rounds. In the last minute of the second round, I get caught something stupid because I'm just not being smart, you know, and stuff like that. And then you know, it's crazy now. James actually wrapped my hands for that fight, and he said he watched it, and he's like, man, like, you know, he said how, you know, he thought he could help, and, you know, we just never got together. But now that my fight IQ is raising and whatnot, like, I think a lot of my fights that are losses now, if I was with James Krause before all them and I was bred through there, like they wouldn't have happened. I'm glad they did, because I took obviously the long road. I feel like it only benefited me to where I'm at in my life now. But a lot of my losses on my record wouldn't have been there if I was under James Krause back then.
Yeah, and even some of those guys were James Krause's guys. Kevin Kroom, Grant Dawson, they're now your teammates. What's it like being surrounded by guys that you previously fought? Was there any weirdness there when you first got there?
Man, there was, at the time that I came here, I think there was 3 or 4 guys that I had fought in the room. Now it's Kevin and Grant, but and it's not too weird, man. Martial arts is such a funny community, man. Like, I think the first week it was kind of like everybody wanted a piece of like everybody wanted to go with me. Like, all the guys that like I hadn't fought was like, oh, blah blah blah, we saw him fight this, he's in the UFC now. Like, I felt like the first week was kind of like everybody was kind of weird, but like now it's great. Like, the Kevin and Grant were never weird, because like we had talked about training together before I even came down here. So yeah, man, not too weird, man. I've known James Krause for a long time. We compete against the Glory before I was here for a lot, and actually Gina Mazzani and Tim Elliott, I actually stayed with them in Vegas when I used to go to Vegas for camps. I met them through a mutual friend and stuff. And so I've been actually staying with them for 5 years, and I didn't even realize they had moved back until like I was like, right before I was going to come down here. So it all worked out.
In terms of training, I'm sure being surrounded by UFC level guys day in, day out, like you said, Tim Elliott's, Grant Dawson, who's on the cusp of top 15, and obviously James Krause. What's it like being able to work with people like that every day?
Yeah, man. I mean, it raises your talent level, and it makes you have to push through practice. When you're the room, whether it's the UFC guys or the guys that are in the UFC or whatnot, but there's a lot of tough amateurs and pros that aren't in the UFC yet that are here. Like, yeah, the some of my toughest rounds are guys that aren't in the UFC, around our weight. So yeah, man, it's great. It's great to be in a room that's so close and it's a great environment, and everybody just wants to get better and wants to win, and that's what I'm here for. So
you've got a big fight coming up on the 24th. You're facing Darren Elkins, who's a veteran of this sport. He just got a big win himself. What's your thoughts on the matchup?
I love it, man. I mean, I couldn't have been happier with the matchup. I've been watching Darren Elkins for a long time on TV, and now I get to go get in a fist fight with him. And I've always said, when he fought, like, I want to fight that guy. Like, and it's weird how the world works, but yeah, man, I love the matchup. He was, if I could have named right before I got this matchup 3 guys that I wanted to fight, he was one of them. And just because he's been there, he's done that. Like, I want to beat the name, and he's definitely got a good name. And I think stylistically we're a great matchup, and we're gonna have a fun fight. So,
what's the biggest change you've made going into this camp? Obviously, whatever's worked the last two fights seems to be working. Is there any big changes you're making heading into this one?
No. I mean, the game plans switch, and that's for my coach. That's for James. Like, that's like he's the one that studies him, and I just obviously we have a different game plan for this one than a jiu-jitsu guy, and of sorts and whatnot. So, like, yeah, the game plan changes, but everything stays the same. I just work on different stuff during camp, and all that.
I want to talk a little bit about the TJ Laramie fight, because that was your first win inside the UFC. Heading into that one, a lot of people were surprised when it was, people thought he was going to win. Obviously he looked very good on the Contender Series. What was it like kind of silencing that hype?
Man, it was, I mean, I honestly, like, when them odds came out, I laughed, like, it's just funny to me, like, how, like, people don't get that. People see what, they saw him win on the Contender Series. He's been a hot prospect for a minute and blah, 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 whatever. But, like, they don't realize, like, a guy like me who's look at my competition in comparison to, he's beat some tough dudes. But, like, just look at, like, that and look at, just look at how many submission wins I have. Look how many wins over tough-ass dudes I've had. Like, I'm no punk, and them odds created me like I was just some pushover, which was cool. Like I'm glad that I was able to make a lot of people a lot of money, you know, and that's all that matters, you know. And I went in there and got the win.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge win for you. First, obviously, finish inside the UFC and first win. Now back to back, you're heading into this one. What can people expect from you on July 24th?
Man, it's just it's good. You know, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna scrap it up. You know, whatever happens, and we're just gonna, you know, Darren Elkins and Darrick Minner cannot be a boring fight. I promise you. Like that just can't happen, man. I'm an exciting fighter, and he's definitely an exciting fighter who can, who doesn't stop. So yeah, man, it's gonna be a good win. But I really think this is my coming out party. I really truly believe that this is gonna be the fight that people are like, all right, this dude's for real. Like he's not just been saying it. Like this is something that's gonna come. And I think this fight is my breakout fight. And yeah, man, that's about it.
And then I'll ask one last one here. It's more for out of curiosity. I mean, he's got one of the most infamous tattoos on his chest. Have you thought of maybe getting a tattoo that says The Damage or something like that, just to equal the intensity?
Not one that looks like that. That's for sure. But no, definitely not. I don't think I'd have a girlfriend after if I got this type of tattoo.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much for the time. Is there anyone you want to thank before we end it?
Man, just all Team Minner, all my family, my friends, my sponsors that are huge. My team here at Glory, my team back at Premier Combat Center in Omaha, and just all the family and, everybody that's been with me from the start are still with me, and we're just moving along.